Hello students, it's your history teacher and I'm here with another online lecture. And today's topic will be the creation of Czechoslovakia and the First Czechoslovak Republic. To study with me, you need to open your book History is Not a Mystery on the page 222. So the creation of Czechoslovakia. So now we're back again in the beginning of the 20th century when the idea of an independent state of the Czechs and Slovaks appeared in the United States of America for the first time. Since the middle 19th century, there was a huge number of immigrants from Austria-Hungary in the United States, mostly because there was strong Magyarization, as you remember. So these people fled abroad to search for better life. Almost a half of a million Slovaks established several institutions abroad because they had possibilities to do so. The US were always famous for the liberty, the freedom, and democracy. So they created the Slovak League in 1907 that cooperated with other Czech organizations. The reason was very simple. Slovaks and Czechs were always close to each other. They had similar languages, customs, history, and Slovaks used Czech language for many centuries before, as you remember, in the time when we did not have our own codified language. The First World War signaled the possibility that the reign of the House of Habsburg and the existence of the monarchy might have ended. Slovaks were aware that they did not have historical law which allowed them to create the state, so they were forced to find the other way how to legitimize their will. Finally, they decided to create the common state with the Czechs. In October 1915, there was a conference between the Slovak League and the Czech National Association in Cleveland. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, these were mostly the places where the Slovaks emigrated to. This east coast of the United States reminded them the nature of Slovakia. So, both of these organizations accepted the Cleveland Agreement here in 1915, and this document demanded the creation of the common state of the Czechs and Slovaks that was based on the principles of federation. The Slovaks were supposed to have complete national autonomy, their own parliament, and self-government. So remember, 1915, Cleveland Agreement, Federation. Another document was signed in Pittsburgh in 1918, 3 years later, that confirmed the Cleveland Agreement. It was signed by the main representatives of the Slovak and the Czech American organizations, and it was also signed by the Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk. So this document confirmed the Slovak self-governance. Okay, so these treaties were very important, and I want you to remember that the main resistance and the effort to create a new state of Czechs and Slovaks was born in the United States. Okay, so now we'll go to another page about the first resistance, so 223, where I will talk about the home resistance as well. The Slovak politicians decided to declare political passivity during the First World War because this situation was not suitable for the fight for national rights. There were many secret policemen, and only a few words against the monarchy could have led to the trial and imprisonment. Many educated Slovaks emigrated to the United States or to France, Great Britain, so they did not help the monarchy during the war, but they also didn't resist so much. They declared passivity. But for the whole Czechoslovak movement that was fighting for the new state was led by the three men. One of them was Milan Rastislav Štefánik, who was an astronomer and general in Paris. Another man important in the Czechoslovak movement was Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, former professor of philosophy at Charles University, who started to promote the idea of the Czechoslovak Republic based on the democratic principles. And the last of them was Edvard Beneš, a Czech lawyer. So these three men established the Czechoslovak National Council in Paris in 1916. So the first Czechoslovak National Council was established abroad in Paris. Its main purpose was to be accepted as an official Czechoslovak government internationally. The main representatives of the council started a diplomatic struggle. Soon the military forces, called the Czechoslovak legions, were about to be created from the volunteers in France, Italy, and Russia. Stefanik frenzied efforts led to the creation of the troops, which started to fight against the Central Powers as a part of the armies of the Triple Entente. They fought in France and Italy, but the most famous was the history of the Czechoslovak Legion in Russia. After the peace of Brest-Litovsk between Germany and Russia, those legions became a part of the French army, and the interventional forces fought against the Bolsheviks during the Russian Civil War. Okay, so this is the most important for me. So now turn the page to find out what happened after the war. After the United States of America joined the war as an ally of the Entente, American President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed the right of the nations of Austro-Hungary to make their own decisions about their future. That is called self-determination, po slovensky právo na seba určenie. For this purpose, he issued a document known as the 14 Points. So it meant that the US was supportive of the will of the all Austro-Hungarian nations to create their own independent states. This support was heard by the Slovak politicians. On the 1st of May 1918, during the International Workers' Day demonstration in Liptovský Svätý Mikuláš, the Slovak politician Vavro Šrobár presented a resolution which demanded the end of the war and mentioned the right of the Czechs and Slovaks for their self-determination, because by this he recalled Wilson's 14 points. This event started the political activity of the Slovaks in favor of the country of Czechoslovakia. In the summer, the Czechoslovak National Council that was established in Paris in 1916, and its main representatives were recognized as the Czechoslovak government by France, Great Britain, the United States of America, and Italy. Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, in the Washington Declaration, declared publicly in an American press the will of the Czechs and Slovaks to create Czechoslovakia, the state based on democratic principles. After the Austro-Hungarian capitulation, on the 28th of October 1918, the National Committee in Prague declared Czechoslovak Republic. So I really want you to remember this date, 28th of October 1918, and also the date, the 30th of October 1918, so the 2 days later, when the Slovak representatives summoned to Turčiansky Svätý Martin, created the Slovak National Council and the Declaration of the Slovak Nation, where they proclaimed the will of the Slovaks to create a common state with the Czechs. So the official creation of the Czechoslovak Republic was on the 28th of October 1918, but 2 days later, the Slovaks officially proclaimed their will to be part of that state, by the Declaration of the Slovak Nation. This is important. Interesting thing is that the 28th of October is a state holiday in Czech Republic, but this day and not even the 30th of October is not a state holiday in Slovak Republic. So this is interesting because it was our first state after the struggle in Austro-Hungary, and We do not even have a state holiday on that day. So here in the picture, you can see Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk. This is him. And as I mentioned, on the October 28th, 1918, there was declaration of our first republic based on democratic principles. However, situation was still very difficult. Hungary tried to keep its former territory united. Its forces were repelled from the Slovakia in the summer of 1919, and the Treaty of Trianon, which had the anniversary just a few days ago, so its 100th anniversary, solved this problem, but the Hungarians and the Germans remained unsatisfied with that situation. Because in the Treaty of Trianon, the Hungarians lost 72% of their former land, because this land was inhabited by the other minorities of the Austria-Hungary who wanted self-determination and independence. The new republic consisted of the former lands of the Bohemian Crown, so this means Bohemia, Moravia, and Silesia, so lands of the Bohemian Crown, Slovakia, and Subcarpathian Rus. So this is like part of the modern day Ukraine. Okay? So I really want you to remember that consisted of these three parts. Then the Czechoslovak Parliament, Provisional National Assembly, voted Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk as the president, Karel Kramář became the prime minister, Edvard Beneš was the Minister of the Foreign Affairs, Milan Rastislav Štefánik was Minister of War, and Alois Rašín was Minister of Finances. Okay, so Masaryk, President, Kramář, Prime Minister, Edvard Beneš, Foreign Affairs, Štefánik, War, Rašín, Finances. The constitution that was accepted in 1920 was inspired by the France and the United States of America, so it was really democratic and developed. The constitution separated the powers to executive body, president and government, legislative body, National Assembly, and judiciary body, independent branches of the government. From the page 225, I just want to mention that in the new Czechoslovak Republic, there were also other minorities living in the territory. Now the majority were Czechs and Slovaks, but there were also the Hungarians, the Germans, and the Jews. Okay, we'll go on. Here we have the First Czechoslovak Republic in the map, so you can see these three territories, so the lands of the Bohemian Crown, Slovakia, and Subcarpathian Rus. And you can also see the minorities that were living in there. So the Germans were mostly living in the border territory of the Bohemia. The Hungarian minority was living in the southern Slovakia. There was also huge Ruthenian minority living in the Subcarpathian Rus. And the majority is the pink, so the Czechs and Slovaks, or like Czechoslovak nation. So the first elections in the First Czechoslovak Republic were in 1920. So until that time there was this Provisional National Assembly. And from this I want you to remember these political parties. So there was Agrarian Party, that was right-wing political party, that represented agriculture and business, and it was the most stable part of the political system. This party was a member of all the Czechoslovak governments. The most important representatives were Vavro Šrobar and Milan Hoxha. Left wing was represented by the Social Democratic Party, but they never reached the positions of the Agrarian Party. The basic goals of that party were social laws. Then there was Communist Party of Czechoslovakia, created in 1921 by the radical branch of the socialists. For example, Klement Gottwald, and they were supported by poor agricultural workers. The next party was Slovak People's Party. that represented Slovak national movement, popular amongst small farmers, Catholics, and even Hungarians. It was the government party, but the activities of some members discredited the party and it was condemned to be in opposition until 1938. In this party, the main representatives were Hlinka and Tiso. After Andrej Hlinka's death, the party was renamed to Hlinka's Slovak People's Party. We'll mention this political party in very infamous position. Then there was Slovak National Party, that was our oldest political party, founded by Hurban, and it was a marginal party represented by the Lutheran priests, for example, Juraj Janoška and Martin Razus. Apart from these majority parties, there were also the German and Hungarian parties in the parliament. So, German Sudeten Party in the Czech part in Bohemia and Carpato-German Party in Slovakia. So these were two political parties of German minorities. In this period, the nationalistic parties like German Sudeten Party and Carpato-German Party caused growing tension between the Republic and its minorities. Just to mention the basic things concerning Slovakia as the part of Czechoslovakia was that in 1919 Bratislava was established as the capital of Slovakia, so this part of the new republic. The Slovak affairs were under the authority of the office of Minister Plenipotentiary for the administration of Slovakia. The first one was Vavroš Robai, but you do not need to remember this full name, okay? I will go into further details next year, but you do not need to remember that. This is just for the general knowledge. The situation was really difficult because in some areas 60% of the people were illiterate, so they couldn't read, write, count, nothing. And many educated doctors, policemen, officials, teachers, and others used to be Hungarians who left the country. And these were replaced by the Czechs who were teaching the new generations of intelligence. The 8-hour working time was introduced in the First Czechoslovak Republic. Also, the Slovakia had really worse situation than the Bohemian part. We were really dependent on the Hungarian market before. So after the First Czechoslovak Republic was created, the Slovak factories were unable to resist the Czech competition, and so many had to exit in the 1920s. But slowly the new intelligence was rising, also thanks to the establishment of the Comenius University in Bratislava. It was the first Slovak university with 4 faculties: medicine, philosophy, law, and natural sciences. During the 1930s, there were already enough educated Slovaks, but they had problems to find an accurate occupation because many jobs were taken by the Czechs. There were also huge differences between towns and the countryside. The electricity and new built roads started to change the situation, and modern houses started to be replaced. So by this, I want to tell you that the situation was getting better and better every day, but there were still huge differences. The Austria-Hungary was divided to Cisleithania and Transleithania. Bohemia belonged to Cisleithania, that was more developed than Transleithania, so the part that we were the part of, okay, we were under Hungary. We were Magyarized, so we had different position in that state. It was weaker position. So there were many things in the First Czechoslovak Republic that caused the later problems. So here I have the great quote about this. Despite all benefits of the newly created republic, a part of the Slovaks blamed new state for all difficulties. The theory of political autonomy found its place in the domestic policy. Mainly representatives of the Slovak People Party, later Hlinka Slovak People Party, demanded the self-determination of the Slovak nation. So these problems were slowly escalating, and in the 1930s, many new problems appeared. The Great Depression, that was in 1929, struck Czechoslovakia hardly, and in January, new German Chancellor Adolf Hitler demanded self-determination for Germans that were living in Czechoslovakia. Remember, as I showed you the map with this German minority living in the border area of Czech Republic? This area is called Sudetenland, and there were 3 million Germans living in the territory. In the 1935, Milan Hoxha was elected the prime minister, and he was determined to protect the existence of the independent state of Czechs and Slovaks. So he prepared system of fortifications along the Czechoslovak-German border, arm production, creation of military plan, everything. Czechoslovakia also had two important allies, the USSR and France. Our strategic plan, also developed by Milan Hoxha, counted on the defense of the country until the French forces attacked Germany and helped Czechoslovakia. So of course we were not able to defeat the Germany, but at least to defend ourselves until these allies will come to help us. Meanwhile, Hlinka Slovak People's Party won the election in Slovakia and became more radical and started to demand the self-determination of the Slovak nation within Czechoslovakia. So not only there were huge tensions between the majority and minorities, but also between Czechs and Slovaks. And there was also danger abroad in Germany. And after March 1938, the Austrian Anschluss, so annexation of the Austria, Czechoslovakia was surrounded by new Greater Germany. The talks between France, Great Britain and Germany started, and Milan Hoxha resigned as a prime minister. And the last thing, the Munich conference that I've already mentioned, so you should know what it was about, so I will not repeat that, fulfilled the destiny of Czechoslovakia. And that's why we call it Munich betrayal, because Hitler, Mussolini, Daladier for France and Chamberlain for Great Britain dictated Czechoslovakia to give the Sudetenland to Germany. So we couldn't say anything about it, because otherwise we would be blamed war guilt. So we just had to accept these terms, because Hitler told others that these Germans are just asking for their own self-determination in the terms of Wilson's 14 points. So the others who hoped that when they will give Hitler everything he wants, he will stop. Okay, so this was this policy of appeasement, politika ústupkov. So Munich betrayal was really the last thing. Finally, Czechoslovakia lost 38% of its territory, 3.2 million of Germans, more than 700,000 Czechs, and important mines and powerhouses that were in Sudetenland, and also our fortifications in this territory. Here is the caricature, so you can see that Hitler was taking this territory step by step. So firstly he annexed Austria, then some part of the Czechoslovak Republic, but he didn't mean to stop by now. So soon after the Munich betrayal, when we lost the Sudetenland, a new meeting was summoned to Vienna. This was called the First Vienna Arbitration. You have information about it on the page 231. This arbitration was staged by Italy and Germany. They decided that the territory of Slovakia went to its neighbors. Hungary gained a large territory in the south, and Poland seized 7 villages in Orava, Kisuce and Zamagorje. So in that point, the existence of Czechoslovakia was on the edge of the abyss. The last step was Slovak autonomy. On the 6th of October 1938, the Slovak political parties under the leadership of Hlinka Slovak People's Party declared the self-determination. The Slovak government was established. The Slovaks reached their goal finally, but it was a perfect victory, because the Slovaks weakened the international position of Czechoslovakia even more, so Hitler could have misused the Slovak demands against the Republic. Slowly, The Hlinka Slovak People's Party absorbed some other political parties. Others were forbidden, and its representatives took the most important government jobs. The Czechs, who had been working in Slovakia for many years and they raised our new intelligence, were fired and they were supposed to go back home. So the situation was really unsustainable. The state of emergency started in Slovakia. The Czechoslovak army controlled the territory of Slovakia, and Slovak Prime Minister Tiso was replaced by Karel Sidor. But Hitler was about to step into this. He invited Tiso to discuss the future of Slovakia. Hitler told Tiso that he planned to occupy Bohemia and Moravia and offered him to create the independent Slovak Republic, but immediately. Tiso was aware of the republic would be under the control of Germany, but it is said that he had no choice. Well, he chose Slovakia to be the puppet state of Germany. So that's what happened. On the next day, so the 14th of March 1939, the Slovak state, okay, not republic, Slovak state, led by the fascist clergy and under the protection of Germany, was created. So I want you to remember that Slovak state was established on the 14th of March 1939. It had clero-fascist regime and it was under the protection of Germany because it was its puppet state, so a satellite. On the next day, on the March 15th, 1939, the Wehrmacht, so the German army, invaded the Czech lands. The Protectorate of the Bohemia and Moravia was created, and so the Democratic Czechoslovak Republic stopped existing. Okay, so you need to remember these dates exactly. We call this Slovak state because when you say Slovak Republic, that's what we have now, and also Republic should be democratic. This was not like this, so we call it Slovak state or war Slovak state, criminal Slovak state. So Slovakia was on the side of Germany, also fighting in. So we were fighting in all of the wars and battles on the side of Germany beside the resistance. Okay, so there were also many Slovaks fighting on the other side, but it was illegal, so the official Slovak troops were fighting on the side of the Germany. As I mentioned, the regime, clerical fascism. It's called like that because the president, Joseph Tiso, was a priest, a Catholic priest, but also a part of German war machinery. There is no excuse for this policy of Hlinka Slovak People's Party because it was violent, unfair, did not respect Vatican authorities, and had basically nothing to do with the Christianity. Tento režim je teda klerofašizmus, voláme to často aj ľudácky režim, preto lebo išlo o Hlinkovú slovenskú ľudovú stranu. A tento štát teda okrem Židov prenasledoval napríklad aj evanielikov a schovával sa za náboženstvo, aj keď to naozaj s kresťanstvom nemalo nič spoločné, to čo sa v tomto štáte vojnovom dialo. So this regime was clerofascist or clerical fascist and also totalitarian. Joseph Tiso was its patron, leader, president. There was only one political party, that's why it's totalitarian regime, and this party was the Hlinka Slovak People's Party. There were two fractions in the party. So there was conservative or moderate wing that was represented by mostly the Catholic priests like Tiso, but there were also the radicals, Wojciech Tuchka and Alexander Mach. These really admired the Nazi regime. In the summer 1940 in Salzburg, Germans declared their will to have their closest friends in the Slovak government. And of course, they were closer to the radicals. So after the Salzburg meeting, Tuka was appointed to be the prime minister and the minister of the foreign affairs. Alexander Mach, he was appointed to be the deputy prime minister. And Wojciech Tuchka, he was appointed to be the minister of the interior. So became the Minister of the Interior or Home Affairs and commander of the Hlinka Guard. Joseph Tiso was the president, but also he was called leader, albo vodca. So I want you to remember these three men, Tiso, Tuka, Mach. Tiso was moderate, conservative, and Tuka and Mach were radicals. In the matter of the Jews, the Slovak representatives followed the Germans in everything. So anti-Semitism was deeply rooted in the Slovak society before, so it was no problem for them. And forced by the Great Depression and the Second World War, the traditional Slovak xenophobia and servility of the Slovak politicians, one of the greatest tragedies of the Slovak history came. The first step was the Jewish Code. This code was inspired by the Nuremberg racial laws that I've mentioned to you, so persecuted the Jews. Firstly, they were expelled from the administration. They were forbidden to do many important occupations. They were not allowed to own cars, phones, guns, or visit some places. They were publicly humiliated by their neighbors, who forgot the Christian saying, "Love thy neighbor." They had to be marked by the yellow David star. During the Aryanization, the valuable Jewish properties were taken by the state and given to the non-Jewish people for the administration. These were usually connected to the clear fascist authorities. I want you to remember the important thing. There used to be a saying that we deported the Jewish people because the Germany paid us for that and we needed money. That's not true. Okay, that's a hoax. Slovakia had to pay 500 Reich marks, so German marks, for every deported Jew. Tých 500 rižských mariek tvorilo poplatok za zneškodnenie toho Žida, čiže za každého jedného vyvezeného Žida sme my Nemecku platili 500 mariek. Nie naopak. Opačné tvrdenie je iba propaganda ľudí, ktorí obhajujú holokaust, ktorý sa dial aj na našom území. The first wave of deportations from Slovakia started in March 1942. Around 70,000 Jews were deported, mostly to Auschwitz in Poland. And this was only between March 1942 and October 1942. After that, the first wave of deportations was stopped. The second wave started after the oppression of the Slovak National Uprising, when 83% of the Slovak Jews vanished in the Holocaust. There were some presidential exceptions given to the families that were important for the state. So, for example, when there was lack of doctors, president could give presidential exceptions to the whole family of a doctor, but this exception protected this family only during the first wave of deportations. So after the Slovak National Uprising was oppressed, these deportations were controlled only by the Germans, so no exception could save the Jews. With the Jewish questions, I have to mention the two Slovak Jews who did amazing thing, and these were Rudolf Verba and Alfred Wetzler, who were deported to Auschwitz, where they formed a resistance group, and they were given a task to do for the resistance in Auschwitz, and this was to escape and to give a report of what is happening in the concentration camp. Well, more a death camp. They escaped to Žilina, where they were hiding in the house of the Jewish family that had a presidential exception, and they wrote down everything they knew about the Auschwitz. They drew the plans, everything, and these reports are called Auschwitz Protocol because there was a huge German propaganda about the camps. So a lot of people thought that these are only labor camps. So only after the Verba and Wetzler report, the information about the gas chambers appeared. But still, many of those who read the report did not believe it. So only in the end of the war, people could appreciate this Auschwitz protocol. So that's it for today's lesson. I will stop there on the page 234. So the most important things I mentioned here in the online lecture, so you don't need to learn everything, okay? Just the most important things from the page 222 to 234. You need to know something about Slovak League, Cleveland Agreement, Pittsburgh Agreement, the main representatives of the Czechoslovak resistance. So where was the Czechoslovak National Council formed? So something about Štěpánik, Masaryk, Beneš, Czechoslovak legions. When and how was the Czechoslovak Republic declared and created? What were the main parts of it? The representatives of the Provisional National Assembly, what minorities were living in Czechoslovakia, what main political parties and the main representatives were in the First Czechoslovak Republic, what were the problems in the 1930s in the First Czechoslovak Republic, so the problems between majority and minority, between Czechs and Slovaks, also the threat from Hitler, so the Munich betrayal, Slovak autonomy, creation of the Klero-fascist Slovak state. So what is the Klero-fascism? The main representatives of the Slovak state. What is Aryanization? Jewish code. So that there was totalitarian regime, so only one Hlinka Slovak People's Party. There was also Hlinka Guard, so like the militia, so military unit of the Hlinka Slovak People's Party, okay, who were Verba and Wetzler. What is Aryanization? So that's it, okay, really like the basic things. So study on regular basis because there will be only one more lecture and then the big test. So just keep calm, watch these videos, okay, be cool and keep on doing great work. Bye.